I want to attempt to argue that beauty, that living for art, living aesthetically in today's day is something that is accessible for most everybody. And I feel that I am not even being optimistic when I say that, because honestly, I think that we have more than enough resources at our fingertips to make this a reality for everyone who desires beauty as much as I do, that has a reverence for beauty. I really want to discard quickly this idea, this stubborn idea that people have in their minds that beauty is a luxury, that living a life of beauty is only reserved for somebody who has vast wealth, and due to this wealth are relieved of their duty to work for a living, or to give a damn about anything at all. I wholeheartedly believe beauty is something that we can implement into our daily lives through ritual, through artistic sensibility, discipline, determination, and resourcefulness. Now, beauty is definitely a luxury in the same way that not having to scavenge for food and be laid bare to the elements is a luxury. And this video, to clarify, is speaking to people who live in the modern world, people that do not have to survive. People who are not in the midst of war, things like that. I'm saying that, I'm making that disclaimer. I know that sounds like obvious, but I have to say it so that people don't get clever with me in the comments, okay? I'm also speaking to people who do live in the modern world, who are struggling, who need to get out of a bad situation, young and old. I think that beauty is accessible to you guys too. I truly do believe that. But like anything else, depending on where you start out, it takes work. It takes work no matter where you are. Beauty requires effort. It takes discipline. It takes determination, persistence. It takes wanting it. It takes wanting it more than anything else. In the modern world, I definitely think we need to be aware of how fortunate we are. We need to be reminded of the comforts that we have. And these comforts, these enormous comforts, are provided to us by industrialization, by technology, internet, sustainability movements, the destigmatization of upcycling goods. You can just go and buy pretty much anything secondhand nowadays, just as long as you're good at looking for it or take the time to do so. And nobody is going to make you feel lesser because you buy something secondhand anymore. I just really feel that today there's very little room for excuses about your life being ugly. There's so much excess now to exploit in this world. It's practically a public service to take advantage of those who wish to get rid of the things that they can no longer keep. And it's not lost on me that some of these things that I have mentioned have caused the issues, which I'm actively trying to rebel against, like industrialization, like certain types of technology, the internet, social media, that kind of thing. But I also can't deny how much comfort is afforded me by them. Most importantly, the propensity for a more beautiful life. A lot of these things that I'm talking about, these comforts, allow you to think about beauty more, to be more leisurely. I see the evils in these things, but I definitely see that there is an opportunity there as well. There's this book that I'm attempting to read on aesthetic philosophy. It's called The Sense of Beauty by George Santayana. In the first chapter, he states, "The appreciation of beauty and its embodiment in the arts are activities which belong to our holiday life, when we are redeemed for a moment from the shadow of evil and the slavery to fear." I mean, I think today we are mostly free of this shadow of evil, this slavery of fear. I mean, we have all the time in the world to run up our screen time scrolling through Instagram or TikTok, don't we? I'd say we have more leisure time, or as Santayana would call it, play time, than ever before. And I'm going to get into this dichotomy of play and work that he talks about in The Sense of Beauty in a little bit. But we should be grateful. We should be so grateful for the world that we live in. And we should be conscientious of our freedom and use it while we do have it. We should be opportunists right now. And it is this paradox that because beauty is a luxury that we can afford today, it also isn't a luxury anymore. That's the more appropriate title for this video, but I just know the algorithm would hate it. It's because of this luxury, this extended playtime, that we aren't trying to survive, that we aren't working on an instinctual basis anymore, that we are afforded in the modern world the time to be more preferential, to be deliberate, and more leisurely than ever before. But it also means that people are more aimless than ever. And we've created monstrous vices that cause so many people to waste their free time instead of applying it to something more beneficial to us, like seeking out beauty, like trying to make your life beautiful. People don't do well with freedom. And so these vices that we've created, like the constant need to consume cheap things, these trends on TikTok that happen that change every 5 minutes, the general overuse of social media, just this TikTok, especially just this machine that just churns out bullshit all day long. And we just love it. We just feed into it. It distracts us. Those things distract us from the fear of freedom, from the feeling of freedom. And it makes people and society look like animals that are distracted by shiny lights and like lasers on the wall. That's what it turns people into. I have myself fallen victim to this. We all have, finding yourself lingering in your free time, doing the most mindless, lazy thing imaginable that you can do. Freedom is scary, it's chaotic. So you have to find structure in your freedom in a way that doesn't harm you, and conversely make choices that benefit you. That's where beauty comes in. That's what I hope I can convince people to do. Beauty takes effort. So you have to do, instead of doing the easy things, choose to put in the effort and do the harder things, the inconvenient things, and you will be rewarded for the effort. You will be rewarded with beauty. Where I'm coming from is that I am extremely motivated by a cluster of movements around the turn of the century. You had like the arts and crafts movement, the aesthetic movement, the Vienna Secession, you had Bohemia. All of these movements expected more from life. They changed the game, really. They expected beauty. And not more than that, they felt that beauty was a humanistic and spiritual way of living. I'm not going to get super into them. I'm going to leave some links below. From the arts and crafts movement, and particularly from the writings of William Morris and his lectures too, we're given this idea that man can be intimately connected to his work, that he can derive a sense of joy and dignity from it. And a man can live a beautiful life even if he works for a living. In the Vienna Secession, when it came to the decorative arts, there was this push to elevate daily life and change our behavior by turning utilitarian objects into works of art. That beauty can be experienced even when buttering your toast, sorting your pills for the day, lighting a votive in the evening. The aesthetic movement teaches us that life itself is a work of art, that beauty it can be its own life path, that is a possibility, that making your life into a work of art is justification all its own, that it doesn't need, let's say, morals, that it doesn't need a religious background, it doesn't need to have reason other than something is beautiful because I want to experience beauty. That's crazy. That's actually revolutionary. And then from Bohemia, which I think these were I would say Bohemians were the most like heavy metal examples of this. Bohemians like enlist to make the sacrifices necessary in order to make art a priority. People who literally died because they chose art. They chose the act of creation, their poetry, whatever it is, and they found that living only for that, under the circumstances, more desirable than having conventional comforts. For me, these movements, and just in general, it seems like this time, this period, these couple of decades around the turn of the century, there was a shift, an awakening of how to live, and more importantly, this direct effort to make life beautiful and to also do it for everyone so that everyone can feel this too. There was a lot of like socialistic movements and stuff that were going on around this time as well, and that art could be intimately connected, some kind of social cause and beauty for all and that kind of thing. Whenever I was learning about them, which I learned about different movements at different points in my life, I couldn't help but feel like I was coming home, like I was gravitating towards something very familiar. And the more I read about them, I felt like they were this seed to a type of living. And this lifestyle maybe would be better suited to the world that I live in now. I'm not trying to convince anybody of like a utopia. You know, I'm not trying to convince people of William Morris's utopia from like News from Nowhere, okay, where everybody just labors with joy and makes beautiful things and lives in these small little cities that are connected to nature, and they just relish in their equal effort. You know, I'm not trying to do that, but I'm trying to, I guess, hint at a possibility. And I do absolutely share Morris's belief that aesthetic values can actually inspire you to live a better life and to even be a better person, make you more dignified, have more respect for yourself and for others, which I feel so many people lack this today. And each of those movements that I was talking about face a similar challenge. This slackening, this kind of loss of respect and dignity. This has just found a new shape in the world that I live in now. Now, I've had people tell me, especially when it comes to the aesthetic movement, I have had people tell me that I have misread and misunderstood the message of dandyism, specifically of aestheticism, which is living for art and living for beauty, prioritizing mastery of the self. I have been told that I overlook the wealth and privilege of those who chose to prioritize beauty and the art of life. That to live that way, you have to be wealthy. Now, one of the like seminal texts, like one of the first texts that was like actually created to describe dandyism was a treatise on elegant living by Balzac. And yeah, when you read it, he literally said one of the criteria for elegant living is being wealthy. To be fashionable, one must enjoy repose without undergoing work. In other words, one must get the 4 winning numbers in a lottery, be the son of a millionaire, a prince, to honor oneself with one's fortune. Balzac says that the elegant life is one of repose, to do nothing. Oscar Wilde says it's the aristocratic art of doing nothing. Charles Baudelaire said it was the man who is rich and idle. That's the dandy. I'm fully aware where this kind of lifestyle originates, but I think we have room to change things. I'm not trying to recreate dandyism the way that it was 100 years ago. That's the jumping off point. I find inspiration, great inspiration from that. I'm doing an amended version. I'm championing a possibility. I see opportunity in the world that I live in, and I also saw opportunity in the very text which cements the idea that beauty is a luxury. This from the Treatise on Elegant Living, that we could never afford to live a life of leisure and beauty. Balzac may have spoken about the most unattainable attributes of a dandy, of somebody who wants to live elegantly, and his high position in society, but he makes it very clear within the second part of the first chapter, which is entitled On the Artist's Life, that the artist is the exception to that rule. His idleness is work, and his work repose. He is elegant and slovenly in turn. He dons the plowman's overalls and determines the tails worn by the men in fashion. He is not subject to laws. He imposes them. Whether he lacks even 25 cents or throws around handfuls of gold, he is always the expression of great thought and towers over society. So, the artist is the only other person that can live an elegant life because his beautiful work, his artistic work, his craft is a way of life. It permeates him, the artist, his work, his surroundings, everything. The artist can wear dirty overalls, doesn't pay for their health insurance, drinks cheap wine out of the bottle, doesn't have a car, sleeps on a chair, but he can still be elegant. His sense of nobility comes from within and is expressed outwardly either on purpose when he can or effortlessly when he can't. Pompous sophistication, my lovely people, is surrendered to the artist. All of that pretentiousness and conceit. The artistic temperament is what I want to be inspired by, and where the answers to many issues of ugliness are creativity. It's changing the way that you view things. And I feel that all of us can have an artistic temperament to some degree, and we absolutely have the knowledge at our fingertips to develop that temperament too. You can learn how to be an artist. You can learn how to think like one. The artist supersedes class, wealth, and even avoids the pitfalls of this trust fund aristocrat aesthete or dandy that have convinced so many people that a beautiful life is associated with wealth. This is, to clarify again, this is where I part from the dandyism lifestyle. This is where I think I need to clarify further my feelings about aesthetic living. I personally think that aestheticism was wasted on rich, idle people who were overcome with ennui, and the so-called blasé dandy is blasé because he's rich and blows through life's pleasures so quickly. Okay, being indifferent, being blasé, being unaffected, this idea that the dandy has seen everything and done everything, nothing affects him, let nothing surprise you. That comes from the exploits of the wealthy dandies. It comes from that. I don't want to live like that, and I don't want to encourage other people to live like that either. In this like amended version of the aesthetic lifestyle, which takes inspiration from William Morris, the idea of joyous work, which takes from Bohemia, from people that don't come from means, you know, like I'm taking inspiration from multiple places to create this new version of beautiful living, of aesthetic living, because I want to move through pleasures slowly. I want to appreciate what I have. I want to feel and think. I think that having the world and not working inhibit somebody from living a life of beauty, truly enjoying every drop of it. For someone that desires that kind of life, who loves beauty, understands that discipline and restraint are some of the most crucial things to have. The old school aesthetes and dandies had discipline when it came to their taste, but none in regards to their intake of pleasure, that is where I think they went wrong. That's the problem. I want beauty to last a lifetime. Beauty is about time. It's about stopping time. I'm going back to George Santayana's book, The Sense of Beauty here, when he talks about work versus play. He describes work as perpetual motion, which means that conversely, when we play, it is making the world stand still. And beauty lives in that stillness. As far as I'm concerned, the trust fund dandies and their ennui, their boredom resulted because their wealth turned play into work. Beauty became its opposite. It became their perpetual motion, and they were once again rendered a slave to some hideous self-inflicted repression. You always hear how miserable the rich are, and it's because they have it all too soon, too much too soon. You need to let it trickle in, beauty. Thoreau said it best when he said, "I make myself rich by making my wants few." Okay, and William Ellery Channing. Also, I just found this poem in my Pinterest. Very simple poem. I posted it on my Instagram some months ago. To live content with small means, to seek elegance rather than luxury, and refinement rather than fashion, to be worthy, not respectable, and wealthy, not rich, to study hard, think quietly, talk gently, act frankly, to listen to stars and birds, babes and sages, with open heart, to bear all cheerfully, do all bravely, await occasions, never hurry. In a word, to let the spiritual, unbidden and unconscious, grow up through the common. This is to be my symphony. That is the proper manifesto for this new version of the aesthetic lifestyle, for living for beauty. It's the complete opposite of this idea that like aesthetic life is reliant on money and is inaccessible. A lot becomes accessible if you're disciplined, resourceful, if you make your world smaller, if you make your wants few. Exploiting the advantages the modern world affords us. Knowledge is at your fingertips always. Education, real, like good education can be found through the internet for nothing at all, for no money or very little money at all. The library is free, okay? You can upcycle anything. anything you could ever want, good things. There's so much excess of high quality luxury goods out there. Okay, so there's no excuse for anybody to have shitty things in their house, things that are falling apart, things that like they bought on Amazon. I have like, I think now like 6 pairs of Manolos. Okay, do you think I paid $600 to over $1,000 for each pair of them? No, but I have them in my closet. I have this illusion of prestige and wealth, but I don't need it. You don't need it. There's so much excess today, okay, that you can exploit when it comes to beautiful objects in your house. You can, and there's also this idea that you don't need to have a lot of things to fill your life with either. And the best part of it all too is that you are that much more of a better person, a more moral person, because you, let's say, buy your things secondhand, or you go to the thrift store or whatever. You get a pat on the back for it. I mean, after the pandemic too, I'm just like kind of ranting at this point now, because like there are so many things that we can exploit. Like after the pandemic and even a bit before, we feel like this obligation now more than ever to support small business owners rather than big corporations, right? Which means it's reigniting this old practice of buying things that we value, which are not disposable, spending a proportionate normal amount of money for the proper creation of something. And then that casually just over time, causally decreases the amount of things that you buy. And because you put a certain amount of money into something, because it's not cheap, because it's not disposable, you take care of it. If it breaks, you fix it, you clean it, you use it all the time, like you don't replace it, and you treat the object and treat these things in your life with more respect, and you treat yourself with more respect. We don't need a lot of stuff. We really don't. And beauty, which is this idea, because it's so directly associated with consumption because of money, wealth, right? Beauty does not have to be assigned to this realm of complete excess that is represented by the rich, okay? Your job too, jobs, you can have a job that you enjoy today. So many jobs, especially after the pandemic, are remote. You can literally work in a pretty place if you want to work in a better environment that isn't some hideous office. You can poeticize your job. If you're working at a place that you don't like to work, why are you there? Life is too short for you to be doing things that you don't want to do. Life is too short for you to have ugliness, to not, consider things. Like, I'm not saying that beauty is easy to achieve. I'm not saying that beauty isn't, living for beauty isn't somewhat irrational at times, and that you do need to take drastic steps and prioritize in a way that other people would find ridiculous in order to keep and maintain beauty in your life. It takes like as George Santayana said, it takes a degree of irrationality in order to do those things. But like, damn, like why not? Like what's the big deal? I see these things circulating on the internet all the time that like, oh, maybe you don't have the money right now, but you won't get these memories back. I love that sentiment so much. Like money comes and goes, but like your memories and like the crazy shit that you do when you're young, especially, and you've got the energy, you're going to remember that forever. You'll find a way out. You'll find a way to like put beauty in your life if you really want it. This idea that beauty has everything to do with wealth and convenience and all this, and that like, oh, you're boggled down by bills. Oh, your life is not suitable for a life of beauty. I don't want to hear it. You will find a way. And I think through the artistic temperament as well, like being an artist, learning about art and like seeing things and being able to like poeticize things over time, you'll learn that poeticization of something, romanticization is through obscurity. And I'd like to do a video about this because I have a really cool idea for a video on this, but it means leaving things out. It means seeing what you want to see, and it means changing your perspective. And I've had some crazy jobs in the past, okay? Stuff that I've never like talked about on this channel before. I had a job at a agri-science company, and I was doing like sampling for like corn plants and stuff. And I found a way even to like, I would think about my outfit that I wore to this job every day, which was like out in the blazing sun, and I wore like denim and like a white t-shirt, and I wore a gold cross with it because I thought it was poetic, because it reminded me of Stacy Nashimoto and her shop, the corner store. You know, it's just like little things like that that like got me through those awful moments in my life, like dumb jobs that I've had. There are ways that you can change your perspective. Beauty is a defense mechanism, and it is a way to get you through things. So I just really don't I just think at this point, with all the resources, it's laziness. If you're getting to that point, there's a way to find it. You will find it if you want it. And it doesn't take money. It doesn't take not having a job, not having a real life. It just takes being artistic. It takes being a little crazy. But I think that your life will be better off being a little crazy, being a little illogical.